What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's second edition of Dad's on Wrestling. I almost after the bell. That's how tired I am. I already did after the bell this week. I'm just that exhausted. I am, of course, Jeff Meacham.
I'm the Renegade of Wrestling, J.J. Williams.
And we have a topic brought by you, one of you, the fans. And let me hang on a second here. Let me finish the list here since I was editing it as we started. But it was sent by Twitter because JJ sent out a tweet over the weekend.
Yes, I did.
To get fan submissions from all of you guys, and one of them caught our eye, and it was from if the Twitter will load any friggin' day. There we go. Okay, come on. Go to the crappy internet here. Okay. Here we go. This is from the one and only, and his Twitter @name, if I can get that part to load, which of course it won't.
After one Billy Gunn.
That's right. It's the one Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn has nothing better to do than impersonate Dolph Ziggler and tweet us here on Dad's on Wrestling.
Don't you mean Dolph Ziggler impersonates Billy Gunn?
No, I know what I said.
Okay.
@SleeperHole31, thank you for the off-camera shenanigans that I can hear so the camera can hear it. Thank you for that. Topic for Dads. Top 5 most important moments in wrestling history. Now, we debated about this for a little while because
not too long though. I mean,
too long,
what on the surface seems like it would be a lengthy discussion really was panned out in like 5 minutes.
Because there have been many moments that have changed the direction of the business at the end of the day, and I was arguing on a couple different points. At the end of the day, yeah, the one I had mentioned was the Buddy Rogers-Lou Thesz January 27, 1963 NWA Championship match as a turning point, because without that match, Vince Sr. and Toots Mondt would not have broken off from the NWA to cease Capital Wrestling and form the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, which is the precursor to today's WWE. And while that's true, that would not have happened, there'd be no WWE, it was not as important as a thing that happened later in WWE history. So that's why that gets an honorable mention at best.
Okay, I can concede an honorable mention for that.
Okay. What we came up with was this. Number 5, Shane Douglas winning and throwing down the NWA Championship in an ECW ring.
Yes. Back when it was still Eastern Championship Wrestling, an NWA affiliate. This moment is what defined ECW for many, many years, and dare I say still defines ECW at its core, along with some of its other angles. But this is the moment that really gave ECW its own real identity and took the company to the extreme.
That's what you did there. And at the end of the day, WWE recognizes Shane Douglas winning the championship as the formation of the ECW World Championship, because it became a World Championship on that night, according to ECW. The official, the holier-than-thou record keepers of the business at Pro Wrestling Illustrated didn't recognize it until 2 years later with the formation of the deal with TNN at the time. You remember TNN?
Yes.
Before it was Spike TV and the Man's Channel?
The Nashville
Network.
Then the National Network.
That's right. Oh boy, yes, that was done then in the official record books of wrestling, I guess. But August 27, 1994, when Shane Douglas took that 10 pounds of gold that was on Tuesday's show and chucked it down in front of
I believe it's right there to the right of you if you'd like to bring it back into the shot.
There you go. Through this bell, I'm not going to throw it down because it's signed by more people than I... Yeah. Okay, that's your bell.
You did one of those things.
Yeah.
Oh, there's cushioning bags.
True.
I figured it was okay.
True. Much more cushier than ECW.
I wasn't going to throw it at Santa Claus, because he's watching us. I want to make sure I get some good stuff this year for Christmas. Had to curb myself there.
You forgot to
I remember we had an audience now. There was no audience earlier when we did Tuesday's show.
And plus Santa's like swearing anyway, so we're probably going to get some coal for Tuesday's show.
Yeah,
well. Anyway, but yeah, Shane Douglas throwing down that championship with all its significance going back to Jim Lundis and Lou Thesz and all that was huge. It not only caused fallout with ECW leaving the NWA, it caused fallout from the NWA board with Coraluzzo, more or less losing all his credibility. And it killed them for the better part of 8 years.
That was one of the final blows in the NWA before it started to get to the whole reclaiming the glory thing that we talked about on Tuesday.
Right. And until TNA really picked up the rights to it, the NWA Championship just became nothing. Yes, you had Dan Severn as champion for 4 years, but he really defended it. He was a UFC guy. You had guys from Japan. You had Sabu. You had Candido. You had the Colorado kid Mike Rapata. Anybody else remember him from from WCW? Yeah, I
remember
do.
the Calgary kid.
I do too. But then again, he was awesome.
That's true.
But up until the TNA deal, this moment in history revitalized and not revitalized. It established ECW and damn near killed the NWA altogether.
That's right. Number 4 on our list is a topic that needs no introduction. It's been talked about by many, many people in many, many circles for many, many years, going all the way back to November of 1997, the Screwjob in Montreal.
And, at the end of the day, the significance of Bret Hart being shafted out of the WWF Championship on that cold November 9th night in Montreal is the fact that it was really the starting of the turnaround for the WWF to reclaim and reestablish its foothold in the business. Because for the better part of the previous year and a half, WCW was kicking its butt in the ratings, and still continuing to do so. Let's be fair to WCW on this. The WWF didn't win a battle in the Monday Night Wars until April the following year, 2 weeks after WrestleMania. But losing Bret Hart and losing, at the end of the day, the really last staunch critic in the locker room of the Attitude Era.
Bret was more than vocal about not liking the sexual direction that the WWE was going.
Exactly. Bret leaving and Jim and Davey Boy and leaving Owen there to essentially become an Attitude Era character himself, because he ended up embracing it at the end of the day.
He kind of had no choice.
He
was still the anti-Attitude Era character, because I would hardly call, his Enough Is Enough character with Jeff Jarrett as an Attitude Era character, and then going back and revisiting the Blue Blazer, darn sure wasn't Attitude Era.
But Owen Hart, a white guy joining Nation Domination, kind of Attitude Era. Kind of had a whole shift in attitude there. He was the Black Heart for a while, and played the baby face, and I'm the soul surviving heart. I've said every freaking week on TV, my God. And then he joined the Nation because he was pissed off and started, being part of gang warfare with DX. So.
And then this also led to the creation of the Mr. McMahon character on television.
Officially, yes, because there was
always been Vince the commentator, and seldomly Vince McMahon the owner. This was the beginning of Mr. McMahon. Bret screwed Bret.
Yeah, because you remember earlier in that year when Bret shoved Vince on his butt in that cage, you kind of saw the swagger come out a little bit, and Vince like, excuse me? You're going to shove me? It's my company. But he really didn't embrace it until after Montreal. Yeah. And that was the perfect foil for the man who had been coming into his own for the better part of a year and a half in Steve Austin.
What?
Exactly.
What?
And that led to the turnaround with the hiring of Mike Tyson for WrestleMania, with Shawn Michaels on his way out and everything like that. The Attitude Era went into full surge, and had it not been for that night in Montreal, who knows?
Very true.
Another incident that, what would have happened if it not happened, who knows? And, I put on here the formation of, but I dare say even the beginning of the Angle period.
Yeah.
Of the NWO and WCW, the New World Order. When Scott Hall marched down that aisleway in that crowd.
You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
On Memorial Day of '96, everyone's like, Razor Ramon's on Nitro, what the hell? And then Diesel comes out 2 weeks later, and then all of a sudden Hulk Hogan's like dropping Randy Savage, and just that whole first, God, I dare say, from May until about Fall Brawl. And even after Fall Brawl, because Waltman and DiBiase joined right after Fall Brawl. I dare say the first half, the second half of '96 was the best time of the NWO, because you had the Sting angle starting. You had everybody, being wary of everybody else. You had,
Piper coming back and getting his match. That was god-awful.
But it happened.
But, you know.
I think the first real big mistake they made with the NWO was Buff Bagwell being allowed to join. And I'll tell you why. Because Bischoff came out there that week after he'd been outed as an NWA member. Because before then, you got to figure, Hogan, Hall, Nash, Giant, Six, DiBiase, Vincent, but again, he was always associated with DiBiase, so it really, whatever. But Bischoff came out there and said, you're either with us or you're against us. And then every jobber was like, I want to get my butt kicked. Help me! And then, poor Riggs got his butt kicked as a result of that. Big shout out to Scott Riggs on Twitter. He's awesome. You gotta follow this guy on Twitter. Scotty Riggs is amazing on Twitter. He's just such a douche and he embraces it. It's great. Anyway, but the NWO formation, and the whole, surgence of that faction from May of '96 until, the early 2000s, with the end of it, the NWO defined WCW at the end of the day. Yes, you had Vader in the, early, Oh, I thought you were raising your hand to stop me for a second. I didn't see the whole Wolfpack thing. You had Vader in the early part of the 90s as the Dominant World Champion. You had Flair and Sting, of course. But, Hogan coming over in 94 and then being allowed to embrace the evil side, which he had not done in over a decade. Almost 15 years, if I remember right. 12, 13 years, something like that. Really put WCW on the map. And allowed them to dominate the wars, as Bischoff said, for 83, 84 weeks in a row.
Now, while we're on the topic of what really put WCW on the map, number 2 was the death blow to WCW.
Yes.
Vince buying WCW March 2001.
Yes. I'll never forget waking up that Friday morning, the 23rd of March, and of course going to the wrestling websites as I always did, and I see this big graphic that I actually put on my 30-Day Wrestling Challenge. The WWF logo, buys WCW logo, and just at my screen for a good 10 minutes. I could not believe that the unthinkable had happened. And yes, WCW was losing money hand over fist. Yes, WCW was in trouble. But at the end of the day, there was always, at the time, Ted Turner to out the company, to save the company. But once
no more.
But once corporate mergers take place, kids, and once he becomes, at the end of the day, a paper vice chairman of the board, at the end of the day, he's useless. And Bischoff's whole deal was nullified when the new head of TNT and TBS said, I don't want this crap on my channel.
They were willing to sell everything else to him, but there was not going to be any TV time. And no TV time, the company was more or less worthless.
Yeah, seriously. Vince went in there, and the WCW said it best. It went in there and basically bought it like at a yard sale. He picked the scraps up. He bought wrestler contracts, he bought the tape library, and the logos. It's really what he got at the end of the day. And he didn't even use logos. He used his own logo.
Yeah.
Which was, I was wearing that shirt on Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's god awful. But Vince buying WCW has, in my opinion, been huge. And it has led to the decline in popularity of the business.
Yes, definitely. Wrestling is not the way it was in the Attitude Era, primarily because there is no legitimate competition.
No.
TNA is competition, but it will never be WWE's level because they are too regional.
Mm-hmm.
They are touring, doing house shows, they are doing pay-per-views, big pay-per-views outside of the impact zone. But until they become a traveling circus, so to speak, they will never be a viable threat to WWE. And in order to be a viable threat, you've got to build from within.
And they
as opposed to going to the WWE yard sale and picking up every Baba Ganoush that Vince lets go.
Exactly. And
that's the main reason I'm so in favor of freaking Kaz and Daniels as the tag champions.
Exactly.
Christ's sakes.
Yep, exactly. And a guy like Austin Aries or Bobby Roode as world champion, And with Vince buying WCW being the number 2 most important thing in the history of the business, you got to look at number 1 as being the most important period, because Vince and Titan Sports purchasing Capital Wrestling from Vincent J. McMahon changed everything. Vince took the WWF out of the Northeast and expanded global. Exactly. A worldwide entity that even as we speak, the guys are, I don't know, as we tape, how about that? The guys are in Australia right now. The WWF in the early 80s and late 70s wouldn't go outside of like Pennsylvania and Massachusetts and New York and Maine and, you know, all these dingy little, you know, TV taping towns where the ring would, you know, stay there and collect more dust than it would collect ticket sales.
Yeah. Type
thing. And now you've got, you know, people all over the world, you know, watching wrestling because of what Vince McMahon did, I believe, in either February or May of, I think it was February of '82 when the sale went down. It's definitely '82. And, you know, that allowed expansion of the wrestling business, period, to allow schmucks like me and Jay to sit in front of a camera and talk to y'all for 20 minutes about this stuff. Without Vince McMahon doing that, and I will give the devil his due, which I rarely do anymore.
Well, you gotta call him the devil because he made God job out.
That's right.
God walked out on a match.
Yeah. God bailed on his own disciple. That's how powerful Vince McMahon is. To give the devil his due, without Vince recreating the business at the end of the day, there would be no WWF.com, there'd be no, you know, Impact Wrestling, there'd be no WCW to fought them really, all that.
But the gift in 1982 is also the curse in 2012. Vince is so afraid of reinventing the company that he's not willing to take those chances, which is what the industry desperately needs right now. The industry needs Vince to use those grapefruits and turn John Cena heel. Just like Bischoff took the risk and allowed Hogan to turn heel. You know, Vince McMahon needs to take risks and elevate new superstars. Just like they did in the Attitude Era when they ended up dominating, pulling ahead of the competition, and further establishing their dominance.
Well, look at it this way. If the rumors are indeed true that we talked about a couple weeks ago on Dad's or whatever it was, about Triple H officially taking over in October, maybe Hunter taking over will be the turnaround.
Maybe, but he's also been groomed the McMahon way.
True.
You know, he needs to be the circa 1999, not give a damn about authority Hunter, not this yes man. If the industry is going to survive, thrive, and change.
He needs to be everything John Laurinaitis is not, at the end of the day.
So,
that's our list of what we think are the most important moments. Again, you can talk about Thez and Rogers in '63. You can talk about the formation of TNA in 2002. You can talk about all these things that have happened in the last, 100 years of wrestling.
The deaths of Owen, Guerrero, and Benoit.
I was going to say, the death of Eddie Guerrero and the death of Chris Benoit were two huge things as well that definitely belong on a list, but then they'd be on head flash spots.
You know, the original Screwjob.
Wendy Richter, yeah.
You know?
Oh.
There's a lot of things that you can talk about as far as moments, top 5 moments in wrestling history. These are what we think they are. Let us know what you think. Comment box is underneath us. Do what we do. Sit in front of a camera, film a video response or your webcam. Upload that. We'll be more than willing to check it out and see what y'all have to say for this week's edition number 2 of Dad's on Wrestling. I'm the Renegade of Wrestling, J.J. Williams.
And I am Jeff Meacham.
And we will see you next time here on the Casa D18 Studios channel.